welcome to the Just Zander podcast. I'm your host, Zander Gray, and today is episode 13. Episode 13. Nice. Lucky number 13. Today is June 14th, so it's a Sunday for me. Usually, I think I'm back to slowly posting a little bit of content here and there. Not too much, just because I'm still in the mode of educating myself on what's going on and just kind of paying attention to what's going on. So, and we can talk about that at the very end of the podcast on what exactly I'm doing, but with music and whatnot. But right now, I just want to talk about knowing yourself and knowing your potential, knowing what you're supposed to do. Again, a lot to kind of come back to what is the purpose of, purpose. To come back to the purpose of what the podcast is about. Before, it was just about to just talk about my life, on what's going on, my failed attempts to be funny, because I wanted it to be a more comedic podcast, not as, and then it just ended up being more of a self-improvement type of deal, which is oddly enough is what I do in my life anyway. So it just makes sense to navigate and propel the podcast in that direction. And so anyway, I want to talk a little bit about knowing yourself and a little bit about purpose and journey, and a little bit about where I am now and before. I've always been into philosophy. I've always had a deep interest in it. I've always read as much as I could on it, and how I view things in my life, that it just makes sense for me to be involved in philosophical ideas and whatnot. And so this podcast might be a little bit much, but I think it's gonna make sense, hopefully, towards the end. So again, I've always been into philosophy. I've always been into, not until recently I just realized what the word meant. I've always been into, purpose and your journey. I think for me to live my life, I need to know exactly what I'm living my life for. Obviously it's in the pursuit of happiness. I mean, in being human, you pursue what makes you happy the most, and that's how you live your life, is then you can enjoy your life. But for me, on top of happiness, I think purpose is the biggest thing for me. And there's two words, and they sound almost the same. Okay, so I had to write this down because I got often confused by it, but there's two words: self-actualization and self-realization. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about it. So self-actualization is the full personal potential, which is occurs only after basic and mental needs are fulfilled. It's discovering one's true self. It's desire of self-fulfillment, living creatively and fully using your potential, okay? At least that's what it means. And I'll tell you what it means to me. And then self-realization is knowing yourself. It's the process and goal of realizing one's character, of personality, and the resulting full knowledge of oneself and achievement of one's potential. So they're very, very, very similar. If you really look into it, the meaning's almost, it just makes sense for them to work together. So self-actualization is it's from the West. It's quite recent. It's from Maslow, pyramid of what you need. And I think Carl Jung is using it too. So it's achievement of one's potential. So it's basically more based on creativity and deep interpersonal relationships, primarily to the outside physical world. It's about identity, consciousness, and realize fully one's potential. So that's self-actualization. And then realization is achievement of one's personality, inner peace, strong spiritual fulfillment, relates primarily to the inner metaphysical world. It's the unconscious fulfillment by oneself with two possibilities of one's character and personality. Okay, so I mean, if you take that in, it's quite confusing, but it also makes sense. I think you have to go through self-realization towards self-actualization, but they both are one. And I think, in my opinion, to build it off as simple as possible, I think you're supposed to do everything that you find interesting, right? That somewhat makes you happy, that you're so passionate about, and it could be anything. It could be to be the best mother you want to be, to be the best artist you want to be, the best chef, the best in your potential. You're not comparing. I mean, this is all about yourself, right? It's not comparing you to the other chef or the other moms or the other musicians. It's about you realizing your potential and doing the best you can into achieving that potential. Man, it sounds so confusing, but it blew my mind because I just kind of recently, the past few days, I've been really thinking back of who am I? What am I? Of course, I'm a human being, but what am I? What am I doing? What am I really doing? You know? And that's always been the case, is trying to realize who I am, what I'm supposed to be doing, and then self-actualizing on the goals that I need to figure out and then moving forward. I think you're supposed to try everything. I think you're supposed to try everything that you find interesting, that you have a deep connection to love. And then once you self-realize on what you're supposed to do, then the actualization will come in. And I think it's just based on really going after what you love to do. I think you're not going to be able to know your potential. You're not going to be able to live your best life, as they say, until you try everything that makes you happy and makes you genuinely feeling the sense of joy and happiness, I think. And yes, of course, life is supposed to be extremely hard. My chair keeps making this noise. I need to get a new chair that doesn't creak. Excuse me. And that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit. The last podcast I was talking about, getting out of your own way. It's all in your head to have such delusional self-belief. And it comes back to self, right? It comes back to you. It comes back to what you're supposed to be doing. I think you really have to know your flaws, know what you're about, good and bad, be self-aware, and then I think something will click in your head that you're going to start moving forward. And nothing that you want in life, it's not, if it means anything to you, it's not going to be easy. I think it's about doing the steps, climbing those stairs slowly to get to your destination. And again, it's not about the destination. I mean, it comes down to purpose and happiness and what you're supposed to be doing, and there's a Bruce Lee doc, and Bruce Lee was one of my idols. So to go back a little bit, so I am I am Asian. I am a person of color, immigrant. I was born in Singapore, moved out here when I was 14, 15 years old, lived with my mom, worked towards a green card, worked towards permanent residentship, which is a green card, and to get my citizenship. And I am a U.S. citizen, so that took a lot of work to get to that. But I'm a person of color, and quite recently, I just realized that there's a lot of blood in me. I have Chinese, I have Vietnamese, Cambodian, Indonesian, Filipino, everything. And growing up, there wasn't really any person that looked like me to look up to. And Bruce Lee was one of them. Bruce Lee was the main guy that you look up to. And he died very, very young. He was 32 or 33 when he died, but he was the guy. He was the guy that I looked up to, and he was at the time he was in Seattle. He was going to school in Seattle, having major in philosophy, and that's what interests me in philosophy, and it just made sense to me at the time to look into it. And then you have people saying, like, when you go to school, why philosophy is like one of those degree that you're not going to be able to do anything with it. That fortunately now there's so much that you can find on the internet, and you don't really need that degree because you can just look it up and you can read it. And anyway, I'm rambling, but Bruce Lee was the guy that I looked up to, looking at this powerful human being, this powerful Asian man that stood his ground and stood of what he believed in. And he was the guy. He was my idol. He was my mentor, not really, but he was this person that I looked up to. And his doc just came out on ESPN Plus, and I was fortunate enough to be able to watch it. And he went through a lot when he was a kid, and he also talked about, or the people that knew him talked about how no matter what he did, it wasn't to prove anybody wrong, but he believed in himself so much. He believed in himself so blindly, delusionally, but he also kept true to his word, and but that self-belief is so strong and it's so important, and it took me so long to really believe in myself. I talked a little bit about self-doubt, and I talked a little bit about, comparing yourself to other people and not knowing what you're supposed to do, that you want to please everybody, you want to be validated, but no more, and it's about believing in yourself so wholeheartedly that nothing else really matters, and it's about really focusing in on what you're supposed to do, your purpose, your happiness, and to just really put your head down and just work towards that goal. And it could be anything. And mostly is to find something that makes you happy, that you're so passionate about, and it could be anything, and it all makes sense. Oh, man. It makes sense. It's to know your flaws. It's to know that you have the potential to be better each day, to be kind, to be empathetic, to be grateful, to put in the hours on what you want to do. That doc is amazing, and it's called Be Water, and that's the very end of it. His wife was talking about how he self-realize, but I think he also self-actualized as well. And that made me look it up, even though I knew what it meant, but I had to read about it. And it comes down to going after what makes sense to you and only you. And you can only do this on your own. For a while, you check in with other people, you check in with friends, family, the person that is close to you, strangers, to really you find ways to find people validating what you're doing. And to most, it's never a yes. It's always like it's not good enough, or it's poor quality, or what you're doing doesn't make sense. But why are you doing it? Why are you doing the things that you're doing, and then hoping to find validation so somebody can tell you, hey, that's a good job, or hey, that makes sense, you should keep doing it. And for me, like, I encourage everybody, if you were to ever ask me about anything that you're doing that you're so disproportionately passionate about, I will always encourage you to invest. I mean, the only thing you should do is really invest in yourself, because if you're not investing in yourself, you're not going to succeed, I know it's very black and white, but it makes sense to me. And I think you have to continually do things that might not make sense to other people, but you have to keep doing it, until it makes sense to other people. But it's not about them. It's about you. It's about you going after it. It's about you really wanting something and working hard for it. Because in the end, they're not going to have regrets for you. You're going to have regrets for yourself. And I think I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I think if you go after what you really, really want, as stupid as you think it is, but it's not. If you're like, I want to be the best carpenter in the world, then you fucking be the best carpenter in the world. You be good at it. You learn everything that you can learn for it, and then you do it. There's nothing like it. Being able to do what you really love and have that twinkle in your eye when you do it. I think I share most things because I genuinely want to share it with other people, and because it gives me joy to release a song, to release a podcast, to talk about my life and talk about my goals. I'm beginning to love sharing my experiences and my knowledge, and even as little as what it is, I love doing it. And it's really the little things, It's funny, each and every podcast I do, something really clicks in my head, and it's hard to explain. Because I'm sitting in my studio room alone, with the camera set up, with the audio set up. I'm really talking about myself. I find topics or whatever to talk about, and I talk about it. And then when you really say it out loud, all these ideas and everything just keeps flooding in. And it's incredible. Well, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I think it comes down to self-realizing. When you know what you're supposed to be doing, then the self-actualization is when it's going to happen, after the fact. And then everything else, I don't think it matters, But here's the thing. Here's the one important thing to get to this. to get to your self-realization, self-actualization. Everything else has to make sense too, meaning your health, your mind, your body, and your soul. Everything has to be cleansed in a sense. The food that you intake, the food that you eat, it's going to literally give you the energy to exercise, to work out for your health. And it's a cycle to really take care of your body, to really sleep, to really, and then after that, this will come. After that, the self-realization, the self-actualization will come. But you have to take care of the physical body. I think then you can get to that mode, if that makes any sense. Yeah. Wow. So yeah, today's episode is really, I think the one thing, I should really have like questions of the day or questions at the end of. I think I guess my homework for you, if you were to listen and to even, if you even went this far, my homework for you is to really look inside of yourself and really look at what you're doing as a whole with your life. Are you happy? Are you genuinely happy? Are you really loving what you do? Are you physically, mentally, spiritually, are you there to take the next step to self-realization and self-actualization? I think another word for realization is enlightenment too. So, and then it goes into all this philosophies or whatever, because self-realization is really from the Indian philosophy, Eastern philosophy. So, if you read up a lot on philosophers or whatever, Aristotle was big on self-realization. His main thing is to unlock your potential, you have to know what your potential is, and you have to basically, in a nutshell, like I said, try everything that makes you happy and gives you passion, and then you'll know exactly, oh wow, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You just know, it clicks, and then self-actualization will just show up. They mean the same thing, but they also are somewhat different from each other. So I implore you to look it up and to read up on it. But again, my homework and do this for yourself, because it's key. I think you owe it to yourself to do something that makes you happy, to live your life to the fullest, to know your potential, and then you dive into it, because everybody's life is unique to them, and to be able to share that story and to be able to share what you are and who you are is beautiful, I think. Yeah, wow. So I'm going to do more reading. I'm going to educate myself even more. So I think I'm going to end it right here. I think this is a good end. And then we'll go from there. So to come back to what I've been doing my best to read as much as I can, to really look in myself, to understand what my purpose is. I have 2 songs that are done officially that I'm working on the release, and possibly music videos as well, and another 2 songs that I'm trying to get done for release as well. So I have 4, hopefully, singles coming out a month or 2 months at a time. And to just pay attention on what's going on. On my links on my Linktree page, the first link is a Google Doc of anything, hopefully everything that you need to know about Black Lives Matter. So you can look it up, you can donate, you can educate yourself. There's plenty of books, plenty of movies to kind of watch, or sorry, documentaries to really educate yourself. That's also what I'm doing. So again, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for listening. These are trying times right now, but it's amazing because everything is coming to light, and it is amazing that the youth are really taking upon themselves to really take charge and really push the movement to be involved. And wow, it's amazing. It's really amazing, and I think all of us, we need to do our part as well. So I'm gonna repost that. I'm gonna repost that Google Doc that you can check out and donate to for the Black Lives Matter movement. And it's not about just them, it's about all of us. We need to support, we need to be aware, we need to know our own privilege, our own flaws, our own the things that we can do to help, and to be involved, to show up, to help. Yeah. I never know how to really end the podcast. I think I should work on that. But thank you for listening. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, feel free to rate and review. I hope you can DM me or talk to me or email me or anything to just have a conversation about this. And I truly am very passionate about everybody finding your potential and working towards it. And if there's a conversation that you need to have to maybe help push you into the right direction, feel free to talk to me, because sometimes you don't know, sometimes you just need to talk to another person that view it on the outside in their own perspective to give you what you might be missing. And I do the same for myself too. So anyway, have a great night. Have a great day. Be safe out there, and peace. See ya.